Good afternoon. Welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Raza Irfan. Before we take a look at your stories in detail, let's start off with your headlines.
10 parties affiliated with the government request the president to lock down the country for at least 3 weeks. President will not be pressured into making any decisions, a statement from State Minister Shehan Semasinghe.
අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාත් රජයත් ඉඳ කාගවත් බලපෑම් වලට තීන්දුව ගන්නේ නැහැ.
New procedure to treat COVID-19 patients in the Western Province. 1904 SMS line introduced. Central Bank of Sri Lanka increases interest rates. A group of senior police officers recommended to be investigated through the April 21st Attack Commission calls on the Chief Prelate of the Askiri chapter.
I want your lead story for this afternoon. 10 constituent parties of the government have requested President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in writing to place the country under lockdown for a period of at least 3 weeks. In the letter, the parties point out without placing the country under lockdown for at least 3 weeks, the hospital capacity in the country would not be able to return to its normal status.
The letter was signed by Venerable Athuraliya Ratanathera of the Ape Janabala Party, Minister Vasudeva Nanayakkara of the Democratic Left Front, Professor Tissa Vitharana of the Lanka Sama Samaja Party, Minister Vimal Weerawansa of the National Freedom Front, Minister Udaya Mampila of the Pivithuru Helaurumeya, ALM Apaula of the National Congress, Tiran Alas of the Mahajana Eksat Peramuna, Dr. G. Veerasinghe of the Sri Lanka Communist Party, Asanka Navaratna of the Sri Lanka People's Party, and Govinda Kumaratunga of the Yuthukama Jatika Sangvidhanaya. The 10 parties point out by placing the country under a lockdown for at least 3 weeks, the health authorities will be able to flatten the curve of the rising COVID-19 cases in the country. The leaders of the 10 political parties have also noted that the country is facing a dysfunctional state as there are many who are in quarantine and a large number who fear COVID-19 while the country remains open. The letter notes that when the spread is controlled, these segments in society will have faith to rejoin the country's economic cycle. The leaders of the 10 political parties propose to the president to consider the present situation as a national disaster and call for the implementation of an all-party mechanism to face it. They propose to form a committee comprising of health and economic experts to advise the aforementioned mechanism.
මේ චක්‍රය නවත්ත ගන්න රට වහන්නම සිදු වෙනවා. ඒක අපිට අකමැත්තෙන් උනත් ගන්න ඕනේ තීන්දුවක්.
We have to place the country under a lockdown to control this situation. That is a decision that we have to take whether we like it or not. One thing we have to keep in mind here is the economy of the country. Now this crisis has risen, subjugating the economic situation of the country. The government has to take swift action to place the country under a lockdown after adhering to recommendations issued by medical officials. As a constituent party of the government and as a public representative who understands the reality, I would like to tell the president to take this decision. We saw the manner in which several trade unions demanded the government take this decision. They have pledged to take serious action if the government will not place the country under lockdown. The president, as a sensitive leader to the issues of the people, will have to take this decision. As we support the government, we will tell them when the time is right to make the right decisions.
එතුමට මේ තීරණය ගන්න වෙනවා මේ වෙලාවේ. ඒක මගහරින්න පුළුවන් කාරණාවක් නෙමෙයි. අපේ ආණ්ඩුවට සහයෝගය දෙනවා වගේම මේ නිවැරදි තීන්දුව తీරන වෙලාවට ගන්න ඕන කියන කාරණාවත් අපි කියනවා.
අද පෙරට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා රට වහන්න කියලා සම.
Today, certain groups are coming forward and demanding for the country to be placed under lockdown. None of these people are aiming at curbing the spread of COVID-19. They believe that through such measures, the government will be affected and the president and government will be made ineffective and the government will lose its modes of income. But remember, the Honourable President and the government has always decided based on the advice of specialists and based on the prevailing situation in the country. So the government will not decide based on the pressure exerted by various factions. We can see that when the president makes a decision, some people are trying to show that the decision by the president was made because they campaigned for it. There are some towns that are closed down and some are due to close down. But remember, there are people in the country who live on daily wages. We respectfully request that they be allowed to continue their livelihoods so that their modes of income are not destroyed. As the government, even the president has personally intervened and is conducting the vaccination program in the country. All of this is being done to disrupt the vaccination program being conducted in the country.
එන්නත් කරණය මේ වෙනකොට සිදු කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉන්න මේ හැම දෙයක්ම පිටිපස්සේ තියෙන්නේ එන්නත් කරණය තුල ඇති වෙලා තියෙන තත්ත්වයට බාධා කරන.
Against the backdrop of a surge in COVID-19 cases, several towns across the country continue to go into a voluntary lockdown. Several towns in the Hambantota, Kalutara, Trincomalee, Ampara and other districts took steps to go into a voluntary lockdown yesterday and today. Shops in Negombo were closed today. Our correspondents reported that the Negombo Traders Association reached a decision that shops in the town will remain closed until the 25th of this month. Shops in Kochikade will be closed for a period of 1 week as well. The Kadruwela Traders Association decided to close all shops in Kadruwela from today until the 22nd of this month. Shops in Waligepola and Godakawela in the Ratnapura district will be closed for a period of 2 weeks with effect from today. Meanwhile, operations at the Talpe railway station in the Galle district have been temporarily suspended. Shops in Ahaliyagoda, Monoragala, Ninnana, Gatahatta, Diurumpitiya and Marabe will also be closed until the 25th of this month. According to our correspondent, the decision was made by the traders' associations of these areas.
Now, a new system to direct COVID-19 patients for treatment facilities and manage the process was introduced for the Western Province. A new number where patients can forward their details to via SMS has also been introduced.
Patients can send an SMS to 1904 with the following details. The symptoms experienced. If you are experiencing breathing difficulties, type A. If you have fever, type B. If you do not show any symptoms, type C. Your age, space, your NIC number, space, your address. The details are obtained via SMS and this manner will be provided to medical teams by the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 outbreak. After the patients are triaged, they will be contacted by the telephone number 247 and their medical centres will be decided. Ambulances and other treatment facilities will be provided as well. Those who are directed to home quarantine will be contacted by a medical team and their condition will be monitored continuously. Hotline number 1390 has been allocated for home quarantine patients. The Director General of Health Services has issued a new set of quarantine guidelines to be applicable to those who are arriving in the country from overseas. The guidelines will come into effect from today. According to the new guidelines, every person landing in Sri Lanka must undergo a PCR test at the airport. The passengers must then quarantine at a hotel until the results come in. The guidelines further state that if the person's PCR test returns negative and the person has not been fully vaccinated, he will have to undergo a 14-day quarantine.
Another 170 COVID-19 deaths were reported yesterday. The Department of Government Information announced that the deaths were confirmed by the Director General of Health Services on the 17th of August, the day before yesterday. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health states that all hospital heads have been instructed to increase the capacity of hospitals relative to the number of COVID-19 infected patients.
Allocating facilities to COVID-19 infected patients while compromising on the facilities for other patients can completely collapse the system and can lead to even more serious problems. Because it is done systematically, even though the number of cases is at its peak and the hospitals reach maximum capacity, it never goes beyond capacity where patients are left untreated. We have given clear instructions to all heads of hospitals concerning the hospital capacity, and we have asked them to increase the capacity in comparison to the number of COVID-19 patients. It is neither practical nor necessary to close the hospitals completely and reserve it only for the treatment of COVID-19 patients. There are about 80,000 hospital beds in Sri Lanka, but we have not utilized all 80,000. We won't do so, and there is no need to do so. What we mean by it is not needed is that at this rate we don't even know what is happening anymore.
මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපි දන්නා මේ වන විට රෝහල් ධාරිතා ඉක්මවා ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා.
We are aware that several hospitals across the country have surpassed their capacity. Patients infected with COVID-19 die at their homes. Our country is facing a situation where those engaged in the health sector, including doctors and nurses, have died due to the virus as well. This is the reason we continue to demand the government to a scientific strategy to impose at least a 2-week island-wide lockdown, but the government has discarded that option. We would like to request the government to make arrangements to implement a strategy that is both scientific and includes the Western medical practices as well.
ඒ තුලින් අපිට පුළුවන් මී යන බොහොමයක් රෝගීන් බේර ගන්න.
The COVID-19 vaccination program continues to be carried out at the Vihara Mahadevi Park in Colombo today as well. Military spokesperson Brigadier Nilantha Pemaratna stated that the Sinopharm vaccine will be administered to people over the age of 30 years at the centre. The vaccination program is also being implemented at the level of the medical officers, health officers across the island. Meanwhile, home-based vaccination for elderly and disabled is still active in the Western Province. Now in more local news, the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to increase the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate of the central bank by 50 basis points each to 5% and 6% respectively.
In addition, the Monetary Board decided to increase the statutory reserve ratio applicable on all rupee deposit liabilities of licensed commercial banks by 2% points to 4%, with effect from the reserve maintenance period commencing on the 1st of September 2021. These decisions were made with a view to addressing the imbalances on the external sector of the economy and to preempt the build-up of any excessive inflationary pressure over the medium term amidst improved growth prospects.
More local news now on the other side, while we now draw your attention to the political situation in Afghanistan. Of the Askeri chapter of the Siam sect Most Venerable Varkagoda Sri Nyanaratna Thero.
The senior DIG in charge of the Western Province, Deshabandhu Tennakon, senior DIG Nandana Munasinghe, DIG in charge of the Nuwara district, Chandana Athukorala, SSP Sisila Kumara Herath in charge of the Munaragala district, and ASP in charge of Mulathivu, Nuwan Kumara Sekara, called on the chief prelate today. Police officers were not instructed by the government at the time or the Ministry of Defence on what action should be taken on the intelligence we received. Instead, the team at the time advocated by the government was reconciliation and the peaceful environment after the war. Also, since there was a very close connection with the Muslim community, no action was taken with regard to the threat from ISIS terrorists during that time. Against such a backdrop, the unfortunate incident where about 300 innocent people lost their lives took place. Police officers did not aid these attacks. Since some police officers were on duty in these respective areas, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the matter had recommended disciplinary action against them. Now there is an issue that is faced by these officers. Venerable Thera, when disciplinary action is launched against these officers, even their retired life is affected, including their pensions. So we would like to make a request from you. Besides any police officers involved in these attacks, when officers who were simply on duty in those areas are subject to such pressure, the mentality of the police officers are severely affected. Because if something that is out of our control happens and we are simply on duty in those areas, we will be held responsible for those incidents and suffer the consequences. This sort of pressure affects the mentality of the entire police force. Therefore, we respectfully request you to inform the relevant authorities regarding this matter. We came here today as police officers who were on duty on the 21st of April 2019 and who have now been accused of wrongdoing because of simply being on duty that day and are now facing a risk of prosecution, losing our jobs and various other consequences. We came here as we have nowhere else to go. We spoke to the Mahanayakas and pleaded at the temple of the sacred tooth relic in hope that we will be prevented from facing the death sentence, imprisonment and losing our jobs.
Media spokesperson of the Catholic Church, Reverend Father Cyril Gamini Fernando, says that the present government has no intention of revealing the truth behind the April 21st attack. Father Cyril Gamini expressed these views at a media briefing convened rather to apprise the public of the demonstration that is to be held the day after tomorrow.
We bore this up for 2 years and we continue to make our requests, but we still have not seen a proper and transparent investigation. Also, we do not see the procedure in which these suspects are produced in courts conducted openly and transparently. The responsibility of the current government is to do justice by these people. The attack occurred during the rule of the previous government. Then this government could not have any issue to investigate this matter completely and uncover the truth. That is why we can't understand why this matter is being procrastinated and why some facts of the incident are being swept under the carpet. There is no discussion at all about the recommendations of the Presidential Commission report on the April 21st attacks. No one is talking about the politicians and officials who were negligent in their duties. Nothing is being said on what action will be taken against them. This must be clarified. We have a right to know as to if action is being taken or not, how is it being implemented, and who is doing it. There needs to be transparency here. The lack of transparency is the issue here. We do not feel that the government wants to honestly uncover the truth behind these attacks. Also, we do not feel that the government is pure enough in their intentions to take proper action against the politicians and officials who were negligent. That is the issue, and that is why we are exerting such pressure on the authorities.
And that's a wrap of lunchtime news here on TV1. For more of these details, you can log on to our website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. Thank you for watching.